Thank you, folks, and fellow club members for being in my presentation tonight. I really appreciate it. I know it's a cold winter night, a lot of Christmas traffic around, so I appreciate it. Also, everyone on Zoom that's also attending, appreciate it. Let me know if there's any problems with my vocals, my voice. So I'm going to present my 25 years of night sky photography and a bit more. Bit more just meaning that you see a few other images I drew in that might be sort of outside of the astronomy or in weather kind of category. Plus just one more telescope in the we have. So a little bit about me. Lifelong Canon user. I have a passion for teaching. I am a certified geek with an obsession for optics. Also a certified gear junkie. Certified weather geek. I also love to track tropical systems every year, which they fascinate me. I've been pursuing photography, astronomy, and extreme weather since the early 70s. I have a passion for capturing compositions that capture the moment or tell a special story, whether it be extreme weather, celestial nightscapes, or nature's landscapes. My greatest passion is educating you, the art, the science of photography, backyard astronomy, and extreme weather. These are my obsessions, or we can say passions. So, what is it I like to do? My focus and interest is in lunar and planetary visual observations, as well as wide field camera on tripod astrophotography and lunar photography using my telescopes. Capture short exposures of the lunar landscape. Don't do stacking, and I don't do tracking. I just like to keep a very simple approach. Following will be a series of night sky images of various celestial and natural phenomenon and events that I captured over the past 25 years. Each image will have basic metadata showing my camera and or telescope settings used to capture the subject. Some of the images may have an interesting background story. I might get into a little bit. I got to watch the time. Digital captions have been post-processed, likely using Adobe Lightroom Classic. And I did my best to keep the image data, metadata, as accurate as I could. So I hope you all enjoy my presentation. This is the Leonid Fireball with iron. Back in 2001, the great Leonid meteor storm. This was taken from Richmond, Rhode Island. This is around 4 a.m. on the 17th of November. And you can see there's my metadata from the and this was using film back in the film. I think it was this is what 2001, so probably very, very early digital, maybe just starting to get into digital at that point. And just quickly, the story, the story is that I was out there probably about 6 hours. It was freezing temperatures. This was from my front yard when I was living in Richmond, Rhode Island. And then, the meteor storm was unbelievable. There was meteors all over the place, fireballs. So I shot about 6 rows of film. I was using a Nikon F mechanical SLR. And out of those 6 rows, I caught maybe about a dozen meteors, but only 2 were really good. And there was 2 fireballs, and this was the best one of the 2. So, good example of just a lot of work, sacrificing sleep, cold temperatures, trying to manipulate, your equipment and cold temps and so forth in your body, everything that goes along with that. But it was really quite an event. Blood Red of War. famous blood red aurora, also taken from Richmond, October 30th, 2003, I believe it was. It was the night before Halloween. Here I was using an Olympus OM1, and you can see some of the auroral curtains. The Northern Lights, now the following year, November 2004. So it was back-to-back years that I caught them. Notice again that they're occurring in the fall. I think they say what, spring and the fall, around the equinox. Usually there's a greater chance that you might capture some colors, just like we did this month and last year in October. This was, again, back-to-back years, again, using an OM1 camera. You can see, again, the curtains, the star field. So a lot of reds, mainly a lot of deep reds. This Northern Lights was actually the next morning. So the same November storm, it was the next morning. I was out early in the morning. I was doing some astro imaging. And then we had this sort of, I guess it was like a second burst of that same storm that erupted. And here you got to see a lot of magenta and a lot of red. They probably look a lot better on the laptop, more than likely. And I think that the projection usually sort of softens things a little bit, cuts back on contrast. And now here's a landscape version of that same auroral storm in the morning hours. Venus transits the sun, June of 2004. This was taken from Whitford, Rhode Island. And here I was using a 10-inch reflecting telescope that was club. It was made by my previous club that I was a member of at the time. I attached my SLR camera to it. So I was shooting at prime focus using chrome film. And here, this was when it was very early, again, early in the morning, just after sunrise, but it was very low above the horizon. So we had that natural haze filter out the sun. So I didn't have to use a solar filter. It wasn't needed. You can actually see, you can see the effects of that without a filter. Yep. Of course, there's the planet Venus transiting. And then as the sun was rising, then it gets above that layer. And then, that's pretty much, it gets brighter and so forth. And then I have to put the filter on, and I did this shot. That's with the filter on. And that's probably the shot you normally would have seen online in the journals. Black disk. Venus on the edge of the solar disk. I got lucky. And these come in pairs. So it was 2004, and then the next one was 2012. So I didn't get to do the 2012. Didn't work out. I got lucky. At least I got one of the two events. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I would have had to go a little more towards the edge, but yeah, you take what you can get. And here's where we get into that a little bit more. So here's a nice landscape shot I did of I think this was sunset at Rock Harbor. Rock Harbor, if you ever been there on the Cape, really beautiful place. 2006. So here I was using a Pentax K1000, again using film. And this here, I'm not going to read all this at the bottom, but that's a little bit of the history. So if you ever want to find out anything about this site, just Google it, and it'll tell you the history about this famous location. And there was a battle. There was actually a famous battle there, the War of 1812. So I also go after, landscapes and skyscapes that I'm very attracted to the light. I love chasing the light, the colors, anything that's sort of really sort of out of the ordinary, really magical, that attracts me. But for the most part, what I really stick to is the celestial imaging and the any kind of extreme weather. Red Sox 2000, I think it was 2007. This is the World Series total lunar eclipse. I just, a lot of times I just like to experiment. And this was setting up on Olympus OM1. It was a 3.5 hour exposure. I had the f-stop closed all the way down to f22. Obviously, you're doing such a long exposure. See the two ends here. So this is where you got the full moon. And then here it is now coming into totalities right here. You can see it coming in. That's the timeline right there, totality. And, I really was putting all my eggs in one basket because anything could have happened. Tripod could have fell over, whatever. I don't even see any plane trails in here. Yeah, it's exactly what it looks like, a Q-tip. Right. But somewhere around here, because I was kind of going in and out, from going in the house, listening to the Red Sox games, the World. This is the World Series, the first one they won after the whole 86-year thing. That whole thing with like, I think that's what this one was. So I was going back and forth. But so right about in here somewhere, like around 12 o'clock, 1 a.m., when the Red Sox won the World Series. Yeah. And then, like I said, I also like to do some kind of extreme weather, not too extreme. I like to do lightning. And here I use a lightning trigger. So I have a lightning trigger that allows me to capture lightning during the day. That's how you do images like this. Right? Because obviously you know that you can't keep your exposure, your shutter open that long during the day because it's going to blow everything out. And you're not going to know when the lightning's going to work. So that's what a lightning trigger is for. Now, it can also be used at night. But at night, I actually prefer, and I find that you get better results if you use the old-fashioned method of using bulb mode. To put your camera on B, bulb mode, and that way you can keep your shutter open as long as you want. And because it's nighttime, it's dark. You can have long exposures without too much worrying about overexposure. But then it's just a matter of, if you've got a pretty good thunderstorm, you've got lightning going on, right? Lightning hits, you close the shutter, and you look at your results. Yeah, so it fits into your hot shield. It goes to where the flash would go. We'll go into that. The little wheel, you tighten it in. Then it plugs into your camera, and so it's gonna run off your shutter, and they'll give you settings like probably a good range where good shutter settings are for it, like using like 1/4 of a second, 1/8 of a second, something like that. And then it will sense the lightning up to something like 20 miles. It'll sense it, and then it'll automatically trigger the shutter on the camera. That's how you would do it. Oh, and there's all different versions of these you can get. You can get a pretty decent one for about $100 if you want to get into it. But you're still going to be careful. I do all this from indoors, by the way. So when I say extreme weather, like weather fascinates me, but I'm very careful. I don't do things like my life in danger. I don't do tornado chasing. I do not do any of that stuff. I would never do any of that. Never put my life. And this kind of thing I usually do from indoors. I set it up near the window, then have a westward view, got the lightning trigger on, and you still got to be a little careful, but you know. And this, of course, now was using, I say I was using the 50D there with the digital. This is just a Perseid media I caught with the summer Milky Way. This is that frosty drill. You see, I'm giving you the dates and the locations and some of the metadata of the camera settings and what camera I was using. Here I was using the 60D. This is one of my absolute favorite places to go shoot. You want to shoot dark skies, you go up to Maine. Arcadia National Park is fantastic. And again, if you look on the laptop, I guarantee you it's going to look so much better than this. But
Yeah, I've got the zoom up on here.
yeah, you can see, this is the Atlantic. You're situated right over the Atlantic on Mount Desert Island. Wonderful place to go. It's our own New England National Park. We have one of our own national parks right here. Go up there, 6-hour drive. Beautiful dark skies, summer Milky Way, all kinds of stuff. And then you got the entire national park for trails, everything you want to do in a national park, hiking, whatever you want to do. You get the park hopper pass. You can hop around to each parts of the park. They got camping sites there. It really is fantastic. Yeah, yeah. Well, I usually stay at when I go up there. I love to stay at Bass Harbor. So this is from Bass Harbor. So Bass Harbor campgrounds, and the lighthouse, the famous Bass Harbor lighthouse, is right down the street. You can walk to it from the Bass Harbor campgrounds. So you stay at the campground. It's really cheap for a whole week. You can get a tent, or you can get a cabin. You can get a cabin. You can get one of those yurts. They call them yurts, or whatever you want to do, RV. And it's a lot cheaper than a hotel. But everything's right there for you. Fantastic. Thin crescent moon at twilight over 1 hour in the hospital. That was taken from India Point Park. This is now using my Canon 6D, which is what I own now. That's my main camera. And then, here I'm playing around. You notice I made some notations. But sometimes I just like to play around in Adobe Lightroom. But I do things very light. It's the same thing when it comes to post-processing, as important as that is, it really is, for the whole workflow. And especially especially because of digital, right? Or raw, because you really should be shooting raw. So when you shoot raw, it's giving the ability to do 100% edits, because you got all of the data. But you got to do those edits. You got to do something, because it's just it's a raw image. You got to be able to bring out what you need to bring out to show, especially like with a Milky Way. But sometimes I like to experiment and use maybe different filters and different effects, and just kind of see what you get. You either like it or you don't. Full moon. Yeah, so now I have my camera attached to a refractor telescope, fine focus. First quarter moon. And this was I'm not sure, I don't quite remember if this was to my refractor telescope or if it was to because I also used to use a Tamron 600mm lens. Sometimes I would use that of some of the shots of the moon. I no longer have that lens, but I won't go there with that. That's a pattern. Yeah. Oh, it's you know how it is. It's you know you sell some gear to get other gear, and then you sell that gear to get other gear. So some of these things I've had 2 or 3 times. It is an addiction. It's definitely something more. Yeah, it's obsessive compulsive disorder, whatever you want. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, okay, then yeah, almost first quarter moon. Or I can just have you do it manually. Uh, so yes, some crazy lightning from a severe thunderstorm, and using the lightning trigger. And so it's this is just a whole nother beast, a whole nother beast, right? So it's well, you got to be more safe now, right? It's not like with astronomy, right? You got to be more safe with something like this, and And you gotta just, it helps that the lightning trigger is doing the shots for you. So it's getting a lot of shots quickly. And of course, the more, again, there's all kind of variables. The more severe the storm, the better the outcome is going to be. More the lightning is intense, you get all kind of crazy lightning, and you get more frequent lightning. So you might have a better results. So this might have been the only great shot. You look at some of the other shots, and you catch a little bit of lightning here, or maybe at the edge of the frame, but it isn't really anything spectacular. But you get something like this, and that's a nice trophy shot. As long as you don't get hit by lightning. Yeah, up here. Yep. Yep. Summer Milky Way over Frosty Drew. And I did a little bit of light painting. So sometimes I'll do some light painting. Astronomy red light. Or maybe usually I use the one on my head now. I use the headlamps. And I got a red and a white. And I'll play around with that a little bit. This was my only funnel cloud ever captured. I got again, everything has like a little story. So I say the story is what. So again, this gives you the date, the location. This gives you metadata. So this was just an example. We know that being very prepared is important for both photography and astronomy. You got to be prepared. But a lot of it's luck too, timing, right? So the story behind this was that, because I know the weather piece of it, because I'm into the weather piece, so I'm able to stay on top of things. And I say, okay, I'm looking at the radar, and I got it on my cell phone. I got my camera set up. I got the lightning trigger. But then for this, I know the severe storms coming in. I see the clouds getting dark. So now I'm also visually looking out the window because I'm watching. Because it's not just lightning too. Sometimes I like to get really nice cloud structure of those severe, right? And then I saw this, and I got my Canon G10 power shot that I keep on me as my portable camera. I used that and took a picture of that out the window. And I was probably the only one who saw it. It only lasted maybe 20 seconds. And I showed a couple of meteorologists, and they think it might be a funnel cloud. They didn't want to confirm it, but that has to be a funnel cloud. I don't know of any cloud that got that cone shape like that. There's some clouds that it can mimic funnel clouds and tornadoes, but that's got to be a funnel cloud. I think it was starting to form, and then it just kind of went back up. I don't like that. 98% worm moon. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes I'll play around with the Adobe Lightroom. Again, I do very light processing, mainly exposure, tweaks the exposure, contrast, highlights, maybe the whites and the dots a little bit if I have to. Clarity, definitely. I'll play a little bit with the clarity, things like that. Maybe, also, I'll put it through the denoise. If I'm using a high ISO, I'll put it through that AI denoise on it they're using. But sometimes I like to play around with the white balance too. I'll get different effects. Pink moon. That's the full pink moon. This is an example where I actually added that in to make it look pink. Because it's called the pink moon, but it doesn't mean it's actually pink. You can play around with it and see kind of like what you like. And here's another example. This is Venus in twilight. And this was at a sunset at the Lock Harbor again. Lock Harbor's in Orleans. Okay? And again, I played around with the image editing in Adobe Lightroom. I'm just playing around with the different effects. I think I did some light painting in here too. The landscape, get some light in, foreground. That's the Southern Milky Way and satellite over West Beach in Rhode Island, along the Rhode Island coastline, South Coast, West Beach. And I usually like to use, so I'll just mention quickly, I mean, you can read it here in the metadata, but 14, I usually use Wokinon lenses. I've used Canon lenses in the past, Canon L's, but I really like the Wokinon because they really set up for, the full manual lenses are really what you need for astrophotography. As long as it's fast glass, at least f2.8, and fully manual because you don't need the auto settings. So they're also much more reasonable. So that's what I've done on most of my photography with, and then also so now I've just recently upgraded to the SP version. So on my longer version of this PowerPoint presentation, I had shots of my gear, but because I need to cut back because of the time frame tonight, I'm not showing that gear. But I will mention to you that I've upgraded to the SP, which is special performance lenses of the same focal lengths, and it's really made a huge difference in resolution. And once again here, this is Comet Nearwise from Frosty Drew. And again, I'm playing around with the white balance a little bit. And sometimes I'll do this was probably done in the camera too, if I remember correctly. I'll do it in the camera, so I'll make sure I get my shot. Then I'm playing around with the white balance because I'm doing, you're blackening. So I'll start blackening, on shutter speed, I'll blacken on ISO, and I'll even start to blacken on white balance. I'll do a shot of tungsten, I'll do a shot of home setting, things like that, daylight setting. And this is what you're going to see now, the examples of what you get. Here, this is more white balanced, shifted to the warm setting. And you're looking at different effects, which one do you like most? Then there's this one I kind of like a lot. That's from the tungsten setting. But you can also make these settings adjustments in software because you're shooting raw. You can keep it on you can keep it on automatic white balance camera and still make the as long as you shoot raw. So this was from Shot in the Farms up in Exeter, Rhode Island. Sunspot Group AR2781. Here I used a Teleview telescope, probably I think maybe 60 millimeter, and 2.5 times power main. So I attached that, and so I can get more focal length and more magnification. See the sunspot here, and of course the solar filter. Sunspot Group AR2786. Again, I think now I might be wrong on this, but might be off on the power meters. I have it down as a 5 times, but I'm not sure. But anyway, you can see the sunspot grouping, and again with the solar filter. Young crescent moon with Venus in twilight. You can see that real thin fingernail crescent moon with Venus. And again, this is another example of get there early, prepare, kind of pre-visualize. And then it's luck. I mean, look at that. I was able to capture that. It's between two cloud flips, or whatever you want to call that, right? And this happened to open up like that for me, and I got the shot. Chinese space station. And this is just a matter of sort of like you do with media photography. You put it on bulb, leave it open. You gotta, of course, you want to know when the space station's coming over, making the flyby. There's plenty of data you can get on that. Get in position. Hopefully, it'll be clear skies. And here you can see there was some clouds too. See where it's covering up some of the trail. Well, sometimes the clouds work for you. It adds to the composition. Sometimes it might not. So again, there's always a bit of luck, timing. This here was not a great example of luck. This was the Black Rocket 12 barium vapor. And I was down at North Kingstown Beach and, just to, again, do photography. And then I turned around, all of a sudden I saw that. I just appeared. I caught it. I saw it, and I knew it was out of the ordinary, obviously. And it was green, I mean, really green. And luckily I had my camera already set up. I started doing some shots. Luckily I got you always want to get like a little bit of landscape in. Always kind of make that, what they call the earth and sky connection. And it adds to the composition. And these were already lit, because that's down at North Kingstown Town Beach, and there's lights there in the parking lot. So this was natural lighting by the lights, which sometimes also can help. But there it is right there. And then I got that published on the Space Weather website. But that was quite a surprise. Moonrise. And I think this is the effects, what they call atmospheric refraction. The moon first comes up above the horizon. That full moon, it kind of looks, see how it's kind of ragged. Now it's all kind of like that atmosphere that's above the horizon, the refraction that takes place. And now going back to a nice sailboat silhouette at sunrise, again at that beach. And this was right before the partial solar eclipse that we had. So this was on June 10th of 2021. And you can see my metadata. See how nice that sky is, that sunset, that beautiful fiery North Kingstown Town Beach. And it's with the Wickford Art Association. Great place. Yeah, you can also see the colors in the water, the reflections, and so yeah, really nice. And there's the partial eclipse. So 71.8% that came right after that. And you can see the stats. So I'm getting using the 2.5 times power mate. So it actually made my scope now. So this was a 900 millimeter at f/15 capture. Some more crazy lightning. So another severe thunderstorm. Now you notice, if you notice you compare each one, it's the same view. It's the same trees. It's because I'm shooting out the same window. I only have one window that's facing west. One's coming from the west. So I always have to use that window. I'm gonna do what I get whatever I can get. I'll be happy. I'm not gonna go outside and try and get all these different companies. I'm not gonna climb a pine tree. I got a pine tree across the street from me. It's huge. I swear it's gonna be 50 to 75 feet tall. I'm just waiting for that to get hit by lightning. Huge. That doesn't do anything. I mean, I can start climbing that and get on top of that, get the shot I want, right? You know what's gonna happen. But you gotta be safe. You always put your life in your safety. That's, yeah, you can get nice shots like this. From the Milky Way over Postcard Beach on the Cape. Not a great place to go. Notice here too, I'm using this is now a vertical portrait format, playing with the white balance, again, a little bit more towards tungsten, and a widening, again, using the 14 millimeter, because that's a perfect lens to really get the entire summer Milky Way in. So that's why it's such a popular focal length. And you see a little bit, see the distortion on the houses? You see the tilt? That's because of the curvature of the lens. You're going to get that. Hey, you can correct that I'm sure you can correct that with software, but like I said, I don't want to get that deep into it. I just going to grab what I can grab. Hunter's Moon. This is the full strawberry supermoon rising behind these trees, again at the town beach. And again, you can see some of the effects of the atmospheric reflection. Total lunar eclipse of May 2022. And this was probably my sharpest one. I also did one, as you can see, in November. That was a little bit soft. Now, I'm not sure if I have it in the presentation, but you can see it was a little bit soft because I was shooting that down at um, Cronin State Park down near Point Judith. I'm up on that, that platform they have. You go up the steps, there's like a platform on top, and a lot of people can just sit. And you got this aerial view, 360 degrees of Point Judith. Great. Problem was though that because you're higher up, you get more wind, and because it was a windy night, you had a little bit of shake you had to worry about vibration. So that's why that eclipse I did that shot. I can tell there's a little bit of softness. Or maybe I had the shutter speed a little too long. But anyway, this one came out much better. And then, like sometimes I also try and do a little more, getting in more magnification on the lunar landscape. So as we know, there's the Terminator line here. So not bad for something that's untracked. Not bad. It's fine with me. I mean, I know I can go deeper, but I don't want to get into the track stuff and all that equipment and everything you got to do with that. So I'm just kind of happy to capture what I can. I think that's pretty good. And then another example, probably even a little bit sharper. See Copernicus right up here with the ejector blanket. And I forget the name of that crater. But, pretty good, not bad. You can kind of pull this off with short exposures of the lunar landscape because, the moon is big and bright. So you can actually use your camera's light meter that's built in. And it's gonna, you're going to, it's gonna read off the light of the moon, sort of like you do with daytime photography. Otherwise, you're not using your light meter. Right? So you can get away with, even though the moon is, you got that motion, if the exposure time is fast enough, get away with some decent shots. You're probably right. Yeah, 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 yeah. And I think Copernicus, now that's the one that's what, 600 million years old, or 900, was it 600 million? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's all got it's terraced. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, the ejector too. Yeah, ejector, right. Yeah. And then the one from Tycho, that's even more. That's like this full moon. I did a full moon rising at Frosty Grove, so that's actually the full moon coming up, rising with some interesting cloud patterns. You can see that being illuminated by the full moon rising. That was good. There's the nature center right there. That was interesting. Some of the some of the Milky Way with the galactic core over Frosty Blue. And I use my red. That's why you see the dome lit up red because I'm using my red light to light paint it. So that's a whole nother piece of it. That again, you can use all different kind of lights: white light, red light. You really want to use red light, obviously, for night vision, especially if other people are around, right? But sometimes you can, if no one else is around, you can use your white light if you want to maybe help illuminate the landscape in more of a whiter light. Um, but you're playing around with intensity too. That's a whole nother very artistic or creative. Um, yeah, there's another one I was thinking. The learning curve. That like because you go online and you do a Google search of light painting photography, there's just people just totally big into that. They get all these shots, things being light painted, and all kind of lights they have inside the structures, and they light them up from inside, and You've seen them with the summer Milky Way above it. It's a whole nother artistic. Oh, yes. No, I do no tracking at all. So I usually use the 500 rule or the 300 rule. I mean, depending is, you know how that is. It's sometimes 600, 500, 300, but I usually use the 500 rule. So I go by, divide that by the focal length of the lens I'm using, and that will tell me what the maximum shutter speed should be, and not to go beyond that. Right, exactly. You want to make your stars pinpoint. Yeah, yeah, I'm usually somewhere between 1600 and 3200. And then I'm always blackening anyway. Obviously, you can black it. The Milky Way is not going to disappear unless the clouds come in. So I'm blackening all the time. ISO, shutter speeds, maybe I play with white balance, even though I'm shooting raw. Only Adobe Lightroom. Lightroom Classic. Adobe Lightroom Classic. That's what I love to use because that's the one that's going to categorize your photos, catalog them, put the metadata in, and then it gives you can do some good editing with it. Now, Photoshop goes a lot deeper. I just don't want to go there. Photoshop drives me nuts. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, like I said, I mainly go with contrast, the sliders. So contrast, exposure, whites, the darks, the clarity, the sharpness, and then I'll put it through the denoise. Because mainly we're using high ISOs. So just until I kind of like it and say I think that's nice. You know, I know there's stuff that can, obviously there's stuff that can blow this stuff away. It depends on how deep you want to drill down. How much of it do you want to do? You know? Is that one from November, the total lunar eclipse? Notice it's a little more softer, a little more softness to it. Um, and again, it could have been my focus might have been a little bit off on it. Maybe it wasn't at infinity. It could be a vibration, although I only see kind of one moon there. I don't see like a double moon. I don't think it might have been from a vibration. It might have just been like a softness. Um, focus might have been just a little off, but still not bad. And here I'm getting in closer to Copernicus. You can really see that ejecta. Yeah, I guess 800 million years old, Copernicus. And this is where I probably did use a 5 times power mate, 5 times whatever my focal length was in my scope, multiplying the focal length and the focal ratio by 5. So I can get in with a lot more magnification. And again, all on track. And look at this lighting. Right? So again, it's nature, right? So now we get into more dramatic stuff. It's extreme weather, and every lightning storm is different. Just like every snowflake is different. So how severe is it? How frequent is the lightning? What kind of lightning? The best lightning that you want to capture is what's called cloud to ground, ground to cloud. The lightning bolts, or maybe something like this. Now that's the kind of lightning you really want to get. Makes for a much better composition. And this was a nighttime event, so I was able to capture this using bulb mode. And another one. And notice down here, you can see, notice right in here, I believe that's that looks like some of the motion from you can see the freezing motion of the gusts from the storm. I think we're seeing a little bit of it looks like how do you say, like a ghost image of it, kind of in there. Could be because of the exposure time. Not sure. And another satellite over Frosty Drew. So remember that, as you know, at dark sky locations, much better chance of seeing and capturing satellites and meteors and maybe even UFOs. Okay? And this was up in Arcadia. So you can just see how wonderful the summer Milky Way is there. Plus the summer Milky Way, galactic core. We got a satellite coming down. We got some clouds. And this also has an interesting story. I'll say it real quick. This was the summer, well, this is what, 2 years ago. And that was the summer we just kept raining and raining and raining. We would never know. Wait for someone to shut off the faucet. And no one did. It just kept raining. So the forecast up there, because I usually go in July, and of course it's going to be a no move week, obviously. And then you're kind of stuck with whatever you get for that week. And then same thing, it was like it was going to rain, it was going to rain, rain. And I was just afraid I wasn't going to be able to get anything. But I got lucky. I got 2 nights in a row with cleared out. So again, another piece of things working out. The weather gods worked out for me. Well, what a great place. It's just absolutely amazing. And then, like I said, sometimes I like to play around. So this is up in Borders Farm in Foster, real dark skies, not too far from here. And you can see that's Ursa Major. And I just said, let me do a long exposure and get the constellation. Then I use my light bulb, this laser light, right? And I'm just kind of doing streaks, pointing at the stars. And I'm doing streaks like that as I had the exposure going. Like, playing around, experimenting, right? Double rainbow. Again, this is from the North Kingstown town beach. And this was like a wild day of weather. Just beautiful light, the cloudscapes are unbelievable. Really nice, love to see double rainbow. It's stronger here, right? And then you can see further covered up with the clouds. Really nice. Then here's a vertical format of it. We had some real tropical rains that day. Guy was crazy with color. And like I said, then we had this rainbow pop out. From the Milky Way, again, over Frosty Drew. There's a galactic core. Again, a nice sort of diagonal. I'm doing a portrait format. This is probably a satellite, maybe. Satellite. I think it's a satellite. And with the nice, you want to always kind of get that landscape in. And here's another day of again at the beach, and you can see just a crazy color in the sky. The cloud structure is amazing, the light amazing. Here I'm starting to use, you can see the SP. I'm using my special performance Pokénons. Well, a lot of some of your real best captures is going to be before and after a storm with photography or with weather photography, before and after the storm, maybe even during the storm, right? Like the lightning or whatever, funnel cloud. But yeah, so never always kind of stay there, right? You never know what's gonna develop before or after the storm. Yeah, some of your best compositions, always the lighting, right? Or even with sunsets, it's the same thing. You can always wait to after the sun sets, at least a half an hour. And things can change behind you, clouds light up, clouds above you, whatever. Most people I notice, as soon as the sun hits, it goes right below the horizon, they're gone. They're just like getting their cars and leave. Hurricane Lee. As I told you, I'm also fascinated about tropical systems. So this is a Hurricane Lee sunset from 2023, showing the amazing sky of the cirrus clouds and the outer bands of Lee that was off our coast, heading out to sea. big storm. Sometimes storms in those positions will, the outer flanges of the storm will come in. You get the outer cirrus clouds. You can see you get these beautiful sunrises and sunsets. And you kind of, again, it's preparation too, right? You kind of know. So if you know a little bit about the weather, and then you know, like, okay, this could possibly happen, then you start looking out for it. You pre-visualize, you kind of say, okay, I'm going to get this happen. Not a sunspot group. Notice here now I'm using a little bit of a different solar filter. One's more of that white. I don't know if it's called a natural white. Is it natural white or orange? I think it's more natural white, right? Total solar eclipse, Plano, Texas. You guys remember that from last April, or the April before. And so yeah, so the story there was just, you guys know, it all happened right up here in northern New England. Normally this would have been the spot, April, forget it. March, April, not likely to get a day of clear sky. But we got lucky. I went down to Texas. I remember, I know you did too, Jim. Like you were 20, and then that was supposed to be the place everybody would go. But most of them got rained out or clouded out. But I just got lucky. Or I guess I was further north enough where I was sort of on the edge. And so I was able to get some shots off. There we go. It's going to be at playing focus. Now this here, I also did some playing around in Photoshop in Lightroom. I actually turned to Corona. Notice how it's got a more of a warmer white balance look. So I'm playing around with it. See what I'm getting. So see some of the solar prominences right here. There's the diamond ring. So I'm happy with what I got. I'm just glad I was able to capture it. I mean, yeah, that's a little bit blown out, but still, to me, it's good. I mean, because I was under the gun, so to speak. There were all these clouds coming back and forth, and cut of rain, so we had to work really fast. And then I put all my images into all my best images of the sequence into a montage. And this I use Photoshop for. And so there it is. The whole sequence. I'm not photo eclipse. Right, so I got really lucky. And notice on this one right here, maybe that one especially, you see the clouds? A little bit of sun, a little bit. When that shot, there's going to be a little bit of thin clouds going over. Full moon again. And then again, a bit more, right? So sometimes I also like to do fireworks. I did a lot of fireworks last summer. But this was from last year. Not this past July, yeah, but last year, right? But yeah, again, now here I'm using my lightning trigger. Lightning trigger is also good for fireworks, because it's going to sense firework goes up, and it's going to trigger the shutter. Now I could have easily did this on bulb mode. That would work great too, but I prefer the lightning trigger. You're going to get the shots faster. Trigger the shutter quicker, you're going to get more shots. And then, but this turned out to be really the only one that was like, to me, I find it to be a keeper. It was really good. And this is the one, Jim, I was telling you guys about that tonight at dinner. This is the one from last August. So last year, we had the big one in May, the Aurora. We had the big one in October. This was the other one. This was in August. Again, I was up at Borders Farm, and August 11th, it was the peak day of the Perseids. I went up there to capture some Perseids, and then the Aurora showed up. I was aware that it could happen, but again, we got really lucky. Now I had the Auroras with the Perseids. I was like, going out of my mind. And so yeah, and you can see there was a lot of magenta that way. Okay, a nice, real nice Perseid here. But you can see different stages of the aurora. This was early on in the aurora, where you can see the color wasn't quite, as opposed to this. But a nice Perseid right here. Again, right, and again, a nice silhouetted landscape. So, timing, luck. Another nice Perseid right here. See the wall curtains. And at the same time, as long as this works out for you, and weather gods or Mother Nature or the cosmic gods are working for you, and the aurora stays long enough, you get to play around. Like I said, I'll black it, then I'll even change the lenses. Using the 14 first because I want to get as much of the sky as possible. And then I'll put my 35 on. So I have a 14, a 35, and a 50. Those are my sort of my trinity of lenses. Now I can magnify. I'll get less of the sky, but I'm getting more magnification, right? So if it gives you the time to do that, do it. And then I'll even orientate the camera. Well, portrait shots, landscape shots, right? And now here's the one from Ninigret Park. This was last October. And you can see here, there's the Big Dipper. Just starting to see the aurora, the lighting of it. It was quite a show. And then I'm aiming my camera going this way, and I'm in the parking lot that was just covering the whole entire sky. And you can see it here. Again. That was like the probably shot. Absolutely. Again, I did play around a little bit of this. You can tell I did play a little bit around with the Adobe Lightroom while I was enhancing different things. But yeah, it was just unbelievable. The one we had last month was, I think, even better than this one. Um, yeah, yes, yeah. But again, I like, sometimes your eyes won't see it. Your eyes might not see it, depending how strong the geomagnetic storm is. The eyes don't do well picking up color at night, but the camera will always pick it up. Why you should always go out and take shots. Aim it north and take pictures, see if it picks up anything. The camera's going to tell you whether or not there's an aurora happening. Common Atlas. That's a really good talk. Here, the tail was estimated at about 10 arc seconds of length. And again, notice how, I'm always trying to include some kind of a foreground. Okay. And then I was bracketing on this tilt, taking a lot of different shots. Not a sunspot group, a lot of different groupings. I was using a glass solar filter. And then a bit more, right? Here now, this is just a nice shot of the Newport Bridge over from Jamestown. And here it was actually dressed up in patriotic colors, red, white, and blue. Okay. Nice reflections in the water from the lights, and the water is smooth. If the water is smooth, it can be, smooth water is going to make the reflection nicer. Or if there's even movement in the water, you've got to do to those reflections, but it can make it more abstract. So it can work either way. It depends. This was obviously at twilight. You want to always shoot these shots at twilight. So same thing with the moon. You really want to get the moon, if you're trying to get a landscape of the moon, do it at twilight when you got a cobalt blue sky. You can see how nice it. If you wait till the sky turns black, you got too much contrast. because these lights are gonna just blow out. It's just too much contrast. So always want to do it with a cobalt dye. And then this is the Milky Way I did from Beaver Tail. Yeah. And here I was light painting. I used my headlamp to light paint the rocks. You guys are familiar with that area, so you got those jagged rocks, the cliffs. So I want to light paint that in. And then because it's a long exposure, now the waves, the water that's coming in, look what's happening to it. It's good cotton candy. That nice soft cotton candy, because it's a long exposure. And now a landscape view of it, landscape format. Could be. I don't know. Again, I don't know. My sense of direction is really bad. All I can tell you was that this would be, and that's why I need my GPS so much. But again, you got to play around. This can get really tough. There's a whole art and science behind this as to what it should look like, and depends on who you read. Like Alan Dyer, he's one of the best astrophotographers in the world. He's from Canada. I'm sure you're all familiar with him. And he'll often say, like, he sees a lot of images of the galactic core, and you don't really want this to blow out. You don't want to blow that out when it hits. So you got to be careful how much you're exposing it, or when you do the wall and you're converting it, with the tweaking. You want to get clarity, but you don't want to overdo it on the clarity either, or sharpening. Then you got to just find that right middle ground. But everyone's perception is different. This was a sunset shot at Coleman State Beach in Point Judith. Again, another example of atmospheric distortion. Sun, that distortion look, and very low on the horizon, right? Thick atmosphere, a lot of haze, right? Summertime, it's hot. Last year, I just went berserk. I was going from like May all the way to October. I was just constantly out doing all kind of shit. So, this was down in Orlando. I was down in Orlando for a week, and I already knew. So I brought my camera with me. I knew I had to have the lightning trigger with me, because I know that Florida is the lightning capital of the world. So I knew I was going to get some, right? Because they have like lightning storms every day. So this is looking out of the hotel room, and I'm watching every day, and the weather, everything. Comes over, and I'm hoping it's going to give me some decent lightning. Got the lightning trigger set up, and so yeah, I got some nice cloud to ground or ground to cloud lightning strike. And another one. Then here, this was at Norset. This was Norset Lighthouse, and did a crescent moon shot. Yeah, twilight. So I went there, and then so I did this first because earlier in the evening, and then I did the summer Milky Way after that. And notice here I used a 35 millimeter. Okay. And here, again, the landscape's important. Maybe a little bit of light painting, depending on how dark it is, right? Usually don't want, you don't want the landscape to be. I mean, sometimes it looks really good silhouetted. It works, right? Because you got a lot of contrast between silhouetted black landscape and say an aurora borealis in the sky. So it makes the aurora pop. But on the other hand, sometimes it's good to add light into, like in regular daytime photography, they'll tell you to try and add the lighting to the landscape because the light's going to bring out the detail. Anything that gets black, that's totally underexposed, you lose detail. Anything that's totally overexposed, you lose detail. So you got to play around with these things and see what gives you the best, also depending on the subject and the circumstances and so forth. And here too, something like this, I always make sure that I'm getting a shot when that red light turns on. That light spinning, it's the red. I want to make sure I get that shot. But you can back because the lighthouse ain't going nowhere. They ain't gonna grow legs and start walking away. Do that stuff. Now this one is the Summer Milky Way over Kissimmee. That's how you say that, right? Kissimmee, Kissimmee Prairie. So when I was down in Orlando, I was down. I said, "Oh, let me find out what kind of dark sky sites there are down there." And sure enough, this was one of the darkest official dark sky sites. Kissimmee Prairie, Dark Sky Preserve. And it was like a 2-hour drive from Orlando. So I took the chance. I had a good rental car. Said, let me do it. I got down there, got a little bit of anxiety because you're getting into these dirt roads, you're going into this like really rural area, dark sky preserve, and yeah, and you got to worry about, I'm following my GPS, so hopefully I don't take a wrong turn, whatever. And it worked out fine. And then, so this is it. So I'm over here in the field. It was actually, so it was like a camping site. So I went into one of the sites, parked the car. And so here's the field I'm looking out. So that's the Milky Way I got. Again, I bracketed, but I thought it was going to be a little better, but I didn't see that this is not as good as what I got up in Arcadia. But I think all of this, what this is, I think that's just moisture. This is July in Florida. So it was so humid. And I know they usually say you want to do skyscapes and Milky Way. Air is dry, not humidity. So I think that was part of the big problem. And I think that's what this is. I think that's just all humidity. That's, above the ground that my camera's picking up. But it actually kind of adds to it in a way. Like in one way, it adds to it, but another way, it takes away from the Milky Way. It depends on how you look at it. Now, you might like it with it like that, or you might not. 99% full moon rising. So this image not so good. I mean, I know it's a little bit soft, but anyway, I like it because only again it's another example of where another hurricane that came in this this past this past August. It was off our coast. It was Aaron. It's a huge storm, very big storm. Again, it's goes in the outer bands, and it can make for some really spectacular sunsets and sunrises, clouds, colors. And another example over here. Perseid meter with a big dipper here. Perseid meter here. That one I got really lucky. I just happened to have the camera set at the right direction of the sky. I kind of caught it with the side of my eye and just kind of caught it. So, again, a bit of luck. This is up in Beach Pond in Exeter. Another great place to go. Really dark skies. Then, like I said, I was doing a lot of sunsets too last summer. So here, remember we had all that smoke from the fires. So you can see the effects now of the smoke and the clouds. Kind of some cool effects, isn't it? So, Canadian wildfires. And again, no solar filters needed. There's haze, smoke, filters it out. And here now, I just did put on a power mate, and I just really magnified how close I got in setting sun. I mean, dip below, the horizon, the clouds. But yeah, I caught. And here now I actually got sunspots. So with the smoky sunset, or the smoky sunset with sunspots. See the sunspot. Yeah, I was using a refractor, the television 85 at 600 millimeters, and then my shutter speed was fast, 1/4000 of a second. Another example here. This was taken up from Prospect Terrace, Providence. Gives you a real nice high view overlooking the city. Great place. Again, you can see the sunspots and a little bit of that cloud structure, cloud band going across. I thought that was cool. I saw that, I was kind of reminded, like Jupiter. Right? Oh, out of that. And then here's some of Milky Way with satellites. Then I actually counted the satellites in this image. There was 10 satellites. 10 satellites. It was up in Beach Pond again, Exeter. Yeah, that a nice dark sky sight. Yeah, this Boston, I mean, it's incredible. Yeah, that's one image. Remember, I don't stack that. Like that's one image. Yep. And then Kermit Lemon. So recently, okay, not a great, not it wasn't like my common apple shot, but I'll take it. At least I captured it anyway. That told by vinaigrette. And there it is. There's the November 11th Veterans Day award. There. I just and I took I was at Frosty Drew, Vinaigrette Park. I went there first. I heard about this was probably gonna happen. I think I got there like on 7, something like that, 6 or 7. Then I waited, it was cold as hell. I didn't see anything happening. Then I looked at my space weather alerts, and so you know how these things, how fleeting these things are. Like Jim, like you were saying, how long does it take before maybe the eruption shows, the index and all that stuff? So I then went home, and then when I got home, not long after that, it started. All I did was this was right from my apartment, and I'm looking directly north, and I could see it a little bit. I could see it with my eyes, and I got the camera set up again and started doing shots. It was crazy, absolutely crazy. But yeah, the intensity of the reds is absolutely amazing. So I think that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I captured the cow jumping over the moon. I did do that. I was lucky to get that. I was really lucky. Moon didn't come out so good, but I got the cow. Yeah, and there's some links. I'm sure you're all aware of those sites anyway. There's some links that are again weather related, astronomy related, and so forth. Oh, you want to go back? And it's a little more my contact. That's it. Yeah. Thank you again for your presentation. Any questions? I did shots of the belt of Venus, but not. There's a lot of shots I'd like to do. One of the shots I've been thinking about doing. All those images you see of the moon. The moon is huge, full moon, but they have a landscape in the front. There's like a landscape structure, it could be a lighthouse or whatever. But you know that the only way to get the moon that big is they probably did it from a distance. like they're at a far distance, because then they can really get a lot of magnification, make that, they can zoom into that structure on the landscape, but also get the moon really that big. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is it up in Mid Providence? Is it? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's one I'd like to do. There's always more. That over 25 years, I think I did pretty well. I got a funnel cloud, I got the aurora, I got eclipses.
Hey, Ron. Ron, it's Steve LaFlamme. How are you?
Hi, Steve.
Ron, I have a question for you. Those pictures of the lightning that you took, were you outside for those, or did you shoot them through a window?
No, I actually climbed my pine tree across the street. I got a pine tree about 50 feet or 75 feet high.
Yeah. Did you
I
hold
climbed
up?
to the top of that, and I put on aluminum suit with silver aluminum boots, and I was holding a lightning rod.
A golf club?
Yeah, with a golf club. Like,
That's
no,
awesome.
I'm actually, yeah, I'm indoors. I just shoot from like one window that faces west.
Okay.
Because storms coming from the west, and then I'm just trying to be as safe as I can, and I just shoot from that.
Were those pictures taken through a glass window?
No, I keep the window up.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, it's a little bit of, it can be a little bit of a cloud because in the summertime, I got the window up. You can, bugs come in, mosquitoes, humidity, you got the AC on, but you just got to do what you got to do.
Now,
Yeah.
Greg Sanos just asked about film, and if you miss film, and I came across this film 800 yesterday. I was going through some old photograph equipment. It's unused roll, and the last time I remember using film was for Comet Hale Bopp way back in 1997.
Yeah.
So this is a collector's item.
Yeah, it's just more of like a collector's museum
Yeah, yeah,
piece now.
yeah, for sure. Nice.
Unless you're doing something really special in photography where the film still is going to be better than digital.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay, nice job, Ron. Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Oh, by the way, when you get a chance, can you email me at my Gmail? And because that's why I haven't been on the coffee house.
Oh, okay.
Because I think, because I switched emails.
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, we have one on the 15th again this month. Cosmic
Okay,
Coffee.
so it's Ron Zincone at Gmail.
Okay,
That way I can sign up again.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Ron.